Sometimes all you can leave them is your absence. This video applies to the narcissist, but it also applies to so many other situations that people can find themselves in living in this world, especially this world today. Because, guys, there's an awful lot, unfortunately, there's an awful lot of people in this world today, and I mean percentage-wise, it's radical, that you unfortunately can't do anything with. At least you can't do anything with them at that time, in that space, and maybe never. We talk a lot about the reprobate narcissist, and that is not all narcissists. But there are many people who reach a point in this life where they are so turned off to God and they've put themselves in such a situation of animosity toward God, hostility, where they've made so many bad decisions, so many harmful decisions against others, against themselves, where frankly there's just nothing you can do with them. So you guys have heard this before, but a person I dealt with, the narcissist, uh, I led that person in a prayer of repentance. Right there. I mean, I was there. Sure as I'm sitting here before you right now, I was there and saw it happen. This person asked the Lord into her life. She she said all the things. She cried. She even acted completely different for weeks afterwards. About two. Because and that should tell you something because we're talking about a narcissist here who their behavior, especially once the deval begins, to keep up good behavior for a couple weeks, unheard of. About 2 weeks, unrecognizable person. Uh, I was thoroughly convinced that something real had happened. I mean, that's sort of the dream scenario, isn't it? That you're with a person who, now, I thought she was a believer to begin with. I thought, but let's put that on the shelf. Some of you guys thought that too. That's because they masquerade sometimes the way that Satan does. They'll fake being whatever they need to be sometimes to get what they want. So I thought that, but when you're in the situation with a person who you've come to realize doesn't know the Lord, but you're in that situation now, and you're trauma bonded and everything else, the dream scenario is that they would actually relent and see the need to repent and give their life to the Lord. Right? That's like you salivate at that idea. You dream of that. Well, that happened. And the problem is, guys, that lasted all of that 2 weeks. And I promise you that in the months that followed that, I think the behavior actually got worse. There might have been some respects in which the behavior was a little better, and there were other ways where it was worse. And so what does that tell you? I mean, it tells you that for some people it may not even be possible. I don't know. I can't sit here and tell you if she tried, she meant it or not. My gut instinct is that she didn't, that the whole thing was a fabrication because she didn't want me to leave. She was acting particularly awful at that time and did some horrible things during the day, that day. And I think she just didn't want me to leave. She knew that she'd pushed it too far. But you're talking about someone, and it's not just that narcissist, it's the narcissist who actually is capable of faux giving their lives to God just to keep you on the hook. That's really scary. And that told me that's why I can say that I believe with all my heart, unfortunately, that that person is reprobate. What else could it be? To be able to actually give yourself to the Lord, whether you did it or you didn't do it, I suspect she didn't because if you authentically do it, change will come. Change will come. Or did that change start to take root and things strangled it out? I mean, there's a precedent for that in the parable of the sower. Whatever the case is, there are some people who have put themselves so far behind the eight ball morally that they they literally can't stop what they're doing. Even if they kind of wanted to stop doing what they're doing, they sometimes can't. A lot of you guys dealt with people like that, and that's an extreme case. I wouldn't imagine many of you have a story kind of like that. But even though it's unusual, it speaks to the heart of the matter. There are a lot of people you can't do anything with. And we are the kind of people, especially if we are followers of the Lord, if you are, you're the kind of person who really, really wants to give people chances. Because you realize, and look, there's an element to which you can say, well, that's people pleasing and whatever. You're accepting, you're taking too much, and you don't have enough boundaries. Well, there's certainly a space for that, right? Where you will put up with just far too much. That people do that all the time. People stay stuck with toxic people their whole lives because they think they have some obligation to stay with them. That's not okay, and that's not what I'm talking about. You have to have a boundary, and I'm going to get to that. But otherwise, we see that there's a bigger picture in place. It's more than just that one situation with that one person. And will the relationship work? Will I get to marry this person? Will I be with this person forever? You also realize that there are everlasting consequences at stake for that person, and you don't want them to be lost. Drop comments below if I know many of you have been in a situation with anybody, and I mean anyone, where you physically hurt inside. It hurt. You wanted them to change their life so badly. You wanted them to step out of the darkness they were in because you can see the darkness, you can see it, and maybe they can and maybe they can't. But you know how bad it is. And you sit and think to yourself, it would be so easy. Why do you sit in the darkness? Why don't you just accept the Lord into your life and everything changes? And I mean for real, do it for real. Why won't you just relent? Why won't you just swallow some of that pride? Why won't you just give the Lord one shot in your life, one time in your life? What do you have to lose? Nothing else has worked for these people. They're anxiety ridden. They are absolutely traumatized. They're usually on medications. They usually can't sleep. They usually can't focus. They're in constant slew of different situations and relationships. And the truth is, they're miserable. They're just miserable. And more than that, you know that they're letting their family down. They're letting their children down. They're letting every person they ever deal with down. They're they're basically not supporting and helping anyone in life. They're not living up to a fraction of their potential. And I do think that that's one of the greatest tragedies. I've heard this said numerous times, and it's hard for me to disagree with it. It's said different ways, but that the greatest tragedy in life is wasted potential. And it's if it's not the greatest tragedy, it's one of them. Because all these people that you can think of that we dealt with, they had so much ability. They could have been amazing husbands, amazing wives, amazing fathers and sons and daughters, parents, moms, dads, friends. They could have contributed so much to the world and so much to the people around them. And instead, they chose the path to literally be a drain on society, on those around them, to instill trauma into their children instead of raising them the right way, to be critical of people instead of uplifting, to literally just be a stain. And I hate saying it that way, but that's what they chose to do when they could have done so much. Have you ever met a person that way? That you could see the ability was so immense in them. What could have been literally brings you to tears because you want so badly for them to just do it the right way. And you know the thing about it is, even though the narrow path is difficult, it takes a lot of effort. Most people are not on it because it is hard. But that initial change, that initial effort to give your life over to the Lord is so simple. And if you actually truly do that, then walking the narrow path is not all by your own effort. You get transformed, you get a renewing of the mind. You're not the same person, you are a new creation. Anyone who's in Christ is a new creation. So yes, there's still effort that you have to put forward. No doubt about it. It's not an easy path. But also you have a lot of help. You have divine help, the best help. And it's absolutely doable. And with it, your life becomes so much more peaceful. You don't live in this constant anguish. You're at peace with yourself. The internal conflict is not there anymore. You do have a renewing of the mind. And a lot of you guys know this, and I'm kind of going on a tangent, but it's related. It is literally, and I've been through this, it's literally as though you have scales fall from your eyes or a veil removed, and you don't even see the world the same way anymore. It's nothing even looks the same as it did. The things you're now interested in, nothing like what it used to be. The things you used to be interested in, not always. There's still healthy things, walking, fishing, right? There's a lot of healthy things. You don't give up those great things. But those practices you used to think were so important, especially the sinful ones, you don't even want to do them anymore. Over the course of time, you don't even want to do it. And my point is that we sit there and ache for these people, and I have done it so many times. I know a lot of my videos, they come off as sort of hostile to the narcissist and frustrated at times. But guys, I hope you understand that underneath that is a heart that has broken many, many times for people. Many, many times for people. And still does. I still come into contact periodically with people who mean a ton to me, a lot to me. I have a very small circle in my life. I'm not one of those people who has a lot of friends that likes to hang out with a lot of people, that invites a lot of people into my life. I live a life of solitude. I'm alone half the time of my life, probably. If I'm not with my daughter, or maybe a select friend or two here and there, I'm usually alone. And I like it, I enjoy it. It's me and the Lord. And I do videos and other things. I don't invite people into my life very much. But when I do, it matters a lot. It's someone I really, really care about. And I've done this at times, even with people who just wouldn't reciprocate. And you like them. You just really like them, whether it's romantic or it's friendship. And you want to help them and you pour so much into it. And so what am I saying in all this? I know that pain. I know that feeling. I know exactly what it's like to want something, to want a change in someone's life so bad you can taste it. You can dream about it. You can sit back and you can actually have visions where you catch yourself sort of staring off into space of what it would be like if that person actually came to you one day, sent you a text message. I'm having a really rough time right now. I think something needs to change in my life. Just that little opening, just that smallest step in the right direction, you would do jumping jacks, handstands, backflips, just to see that. The idea that that person actually even just recognized there's some need to do something differently, and you know what I'm talking about. Where you would literally throw a party for somebody the same way that God and the angels do when a sinner comes to repentance, when a non believer becomes a believer. There is a party. And I know that there's probably some metaphorical aspects to that, but I think there really is a party of sorts. Can you imagine the way that they rejoice when one of us who's astray comes back and comes over to their side? And we feel that. So, all of this is to say, this is the way many of us feel. This is the way I feel. This is the way we've poured ourselves out relentlessly to certain people. We've been there even when we know we're being perhaps mistreated, even when we know we're being mistreated or taken for granted. And we can know full well we are the best person possible for this individual. And it's not in an arrogant way. It's literally that way where you know that person has never met someone like me and they probably never will again. This is their shot. This is their fork in the road. This is the capital THE chance to get it right. They have this person in front of them who would help them in every way, who would guide them, particularly spiritually. And they have God working in their lives right now. He's working overtime to try to sway them, pull them, do something to give them the best chance possible. They have all of that right in front of them, and you can see it, and they can't. You know that feeling I'm talking about. Some of you do. Because you felt it for the narcissist, or you felt it for some other person or other people. And the point of this is, you can do all of that. You can have all of that feeling. You can pour yourself out. You can give and you can give and you can run that race to the finish line. But there's a finish line. There's a point where you just realize the tragic reality that all you can really give that person and all you can really leave them with all you poured out, all you can now really leave them with is your absence. Your absence. Because you've tried everything else. And that's where you do have to finally have a boundary and finally have a limit. Sometimes for certain people, that means blocking them across the board, and you have decided I'll never speak to them ever again. Depends on what they do to you. It could also be a less harsh give up, or not give up, but pull away, whatever you would like to call it, because you're not giving up. You gave everything. But it could just be you took the person's name and number out of your phone and you'll never reach out to them again. And if that means you never talk to them and you never see them and there's just nothing, and that person that you felt so much for and tried so hard for, literally this might be the end and you never ever speak to them again because you're not putting forth any more effort unless they somehow, some way reach out to you and they decide they want to try something different in their lives. And then it's up to you as to whether or not you want to help them again or try to entertain it, or if you think it's valid or not. I would just say the person's got to illustrate some meaningful attempt at change, some meaningful attempt, not just the same old thing. Because there's a lot of people who will keep you in their lives on the hook in whatever way, as long as they possibly can, as long as you will allow it. And they'll take you for granted, and they'll come in and out of your life if you let them. But it will never be serious. It will never be what you wanted it to be. It will just be because it's doing something for them, something. And they'll come and go, and they'll come and go, but they'll keep you on the hook. There's a lot of people like that today. I know. But there's a point where you reach it, and usually you reach it after you've tried to many, many times over, where you're like, all right, the person left me on red again. I'm done. And then they come back around later on, and you think, okay, well, it seems like maybe something's changed here. And then happens again later on, and this is the cycle. But there comes a point where you have just had enough, and it's not bitterness toward the person. This is when you're doing it the right way, in my opinion. It's not bitterness. It's not anger. It's not frustration to the person. It's that you sort of saw this coming a while back. And you said to yourself, you make these little agreements. I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to stick it out for a while because once I'm done, I'm done. Once I'm done, I'm that kind of person. Once I get to that point and I'm pushed to that point, I'm done. I'll tell you for me, guys, and you probably have done it too. I intentionally stuck around in a couple different situations with people longer than I knew I should have, especially with the narcissist, but that's not the only time. And I kind of knew where this was going, and I knew where this was going to end in my heart, and I didn't want it to be that way. And you hang on because you don't want it to be that way. You care about it. But you kind of knew all along this is probably where it's going to end. It's probably ultimately going to have to end where this fizzles out and there's nothing there ever again. I stuck around longer than I should have a couple times, and I did it intentionally. And the reason why I did it was simple. I wanted to know that when I finally did close that door and walk away, that I had done every single thing I could do in my power to have a clear conscience, to know I poured myself out. There's nothing left remaining on the table I could have done. I tried every angle, every approach, the patience of them being non-committal and in and out, some disrespect, because these people have problems and you understand they've got problems. And you go through more than you should because you wanted to know you gave it all. You gave it everything. So there's not one part of you, one piece of you that looks back for the rest of time because the way you deal with that person is short, usually, in the grand scheme of the world. And I always wanted to look back and say, I did every single thing possible to reach that person. There was nothing left. There was no approach left, nothing on the table I could have done. Now, I'm not saying that you should all do that. I, that's just what I've done in select situations. Other things I've cut off much, much faster. But you got to base things off each situation. But I knew I had no regrets, and I don't. Those individuals, I have no regrets now. I know there's nothing else I could have done. They're in God's hands, and you have now got to finally give them over to God. Even though you've been praying for them all this time, it's time to give them over to the Lord. You can go no farther. You have reached that dead end. Your race is finished. Job well done, good and faithful servant. You poured yourself out. And I also wanted to leave an indelible mark on their lives. I wanted them to know that at least one time in their lives they truly met a person who knew the Lord and truly cared deeply about them and tried to help them and tried to pull them over to that side. They had their shot. They can never say, "Oh, I've never met a real person of the Lord. They're all fake." No, no, they know better. They know they met at least one, and I wanted to be that one. And I want to be that one the rest of my life, always, until Christ comes back or I'm not here anymore. Whatever comes first. And that doesn't mean, like I said, I'm not saying accept abuse and stay in toxic, terrible situations. You know when it's that kind of situation. But you also know when you feel like there's still a chance and there's still hope. But my point is this: people will drive you to the place where all you can leave them with is your absence. You can give no more. It's not a matter of saying the right things, presenting it the right way, giving them enough space, being consistent enough with them, praying for them hard enough, long enough that there's no other recourse but to leave them with your absence. And it's hard. We know how deeply difficult that is. But that's a crucial decision when you finally reach that, because it also frees you up. You are ready for whatever's next. God is going to bless you in some capacity, all spiritual gifts. Sometimes it might even be a physical. He's ready to bless you because you have poured that your life out to that person, but now you've also given it to him when you knew you reached the end. And you're open, eyes open. What's he going to do? What's God going to do in my life now? What's my next thing? And there's always lots of things, and all you can do is leave them with the absence. And some of you might think to yourself, even for the narcissist, and it's not just about them. Whoever it is, you might think, well, yeah, I finally walked away, but it didn't matter to them. They didn't care. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that's at all true. I don't think that's at all true. It doesn't matter who you're dealing with. If you've done this for the person and then you finally have reached it, oh, they feel it. That next time that they send that phantom text message your way because they think you're always going to be there and you don't respond, or you respond in such a way that they know, oh, something's changed. Wait a minute. They're not happy to hear from me. They didn't go out of their way. They weren't mean, never be cruel, but there's something missing here. I don't feel the energy in that response they gave me. And they know you've changed something. Don't think that doesn't matter. Don't think that in that moment, at times, for some people, they think to themselves, oh crap, I think I pushed this one too far. I think this time I may have actually, and sometimes panic will set in and you'll start to see a mass effort to try to get you back into your life, whether it's real or not. That's, you got to be the judge. Sometimes that will happen. Sometimes they won't because the pride is just too deep. And they're like, well, I know I pushed it to this. I hate it. I don't want this person gone. I wanted them there, but I'm also not going to like apologize and go out of my way. And maybe they go their way at that point. And then maybe they try to come back later on at another time because they've dealt with people who were nasty and vicious and they look back on you. And my point is that when you go about things this way, when you have poured it out and done everything you can do and done right by them, and then that you finally reach a point where you just detach, whether that's no contact in situations or it is just you don't reach out anymore. You don't give them the energy when they do reach out to you. You just somewhat gray rock them. Like you still care and you're there, but you're not there the way that you were because you've given it up. You've given it to the Lord and you've done it for yourself. And sometimes you've done it for them because there are times when all you can give a person is your absence. Nothing else made a difference to them. Nothing else had that shot. And I'm not saying that in all cases, giving them your absence is going to make some like, Herculean effort then from them to change their lives. I'm not saying that will happen. It can, but most of the time, probably not that. But it will matter to them. If you were that person who they can always look at and said, they did right by me. They really did right by me. And that person, that was genuine. That was a real person. There's not that many of those out there, are there? And it mattered to them. And now they have to deal with other people who don't care as much, aren't there for them, are there for their own selfish reasons. Don't matter. They don't matter as much. Or they're rude, or they're conceited, or they're cruel, or there's so many other combination of things, but they're not you because you did it the right way. Yeah, that person's not forgetting you. And maybe they'll try to come back years later on, and maybe they'll see the light. And maybe it's possible something you did, including giving them your absence, is what triggered something down the road. Maybe there is a point where they look back 3, 5 years later and like, man, something does have to change in my life. I saw what it was like. I saw the person that was. But that's all you can do, is my point. It's all you can do at the end of the day in some situations is just leave a person with your absence. And that will speak louder than anything. That will surpass any well concocted text message that you sit and you draft. I've done it too. You draft on a Saturday night, thinking about that person, how you wish they'd change, and you're pouring your heart out into a text that you may or may never send, just for you, if nothing else, about how they could change and how life could really be for them, and what life would be like. And you do those things. That's the kind of person that they lost. And you view this truthfully at the end of the day, and I'll wrap up. You understand that they lost out. It's not a great thing. It's not satisfying. You're not happy about doing it, but you're at peace. You're calm, and you realize at the end of the day, they truly lost out on a great one. A great friend, or a great husband, wife, potentially, or a great whatever. They lost out. They lost hugely, and you still feel that for them. It's not a satisfying, "Huh, I got this. They lost out." No, no, no. It's they lost out in ways they'll probably never fully understand. So, guys, this I hope resonates with some people. You have to know that you have to conduct yourself in the right way the entire time you're dealing with people, as much as you can, and then so you can step away and know you did everything you could, and then all you can leave them is your absence, and that absence will speak greater, louder than any text message, any other action, any other thing you could do, any other way to pull yourself out. That absence will leave a void, a weird void in their lives that they'll have to then live with. They'll have to they'll have to reconcile in their lives. And they'll have to decide, am I going to do things differently? So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll come at you with another one soon. Until then, God bless.